Uh-oh. Can't have the game on. There we go. Kind of Mocha can. Kind of Mocha can. Yeah, watching the stupid game. I don't know what to do. This happens every time. Hello. Hello to me. Hello, Mocha. How are you? I want to finish playing this game really quick. And then I got to figure out how I was so smart not to go to college. So, um, so I don't have any student debt. But I'm all in favor of getting rid of that shit because I didn't go to college, but I'm smart enough to know that that would be a huge bonus to every single person in this country. Um, right? I mean, everyone would benefit from that. Everyone. No single person. Because the economy would get better all around. So, today I made a Lego skyline of Dubai, and I was thinking of looking at it and then going over the different landmarks in the skyline and studying them a little bit. But I am tired and don't care about the capitalist hellscape known as Dubai that much. Just look cool. Actually, I got the two Lego sets to uh, do my third year in a row. Uh, it's the year of the tiger. And they give you this thing. Pretty cool. But I get them every year. You buy like some shit. So I got that. Oh, and you can't see it. Singapore, which basically looks like one big hotel. But anyways, that's something to do. I don't think it's that cool. Hey, sound alerts. What's up? Yeah, get right on those sound alerts. Bing bong. Is that one? Um. So, anyways, yeah, I was thinking of going over the Lego thing, but no one's here, so no one cares. Mocha's here. She's having a good time, right, Mocha? Ready? Show them what you got. Show them what you got. Boom. Boom. Never miss. Um, I gotta stop giving her all those peanuts. Uh, it's gonna, it's gonna fuck her up one day. I have a bad feeling. But anyways, yeah. So I didn't go anywhere today. We went for a walk, but actually. I didn't start the car. That's good. Um, it's not that cold today. It's in the 20s. Um, I don't like the winter at all for any reason. So I don't. I could have gone and done stuff, but there's a pandemic happening too. And there's really no reason to be out in this stuff. So, anyways, let me turn this on too. Boom. Um, there we go. How's that? Sound alerts. Anyways, there. Try to clean this up a little bit. Hello? Hello? Hello, 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 hello. I'm just kidding. Anyway. Okay. The game is Detroit Become Human. Last time I played, the first time, Connor who got shot by Hank because I was being a smartass. And this time, I was able to push the compassion button in within Hank because apparently, the robots are lesbians. Yes, so something to look forward to. In the future, 16 years from now, I believe this is. So that's cool. I'm gonna play a little bit. Um, there was something else I wanted to look at too, but like I said, every time I come on here and I think I got some shit going right, I hit start stream. No idea what to do. Anyways, so yeah, we'll be checking that out. Okay. See, what the fuck?
once. Pick them up and make it snack.
Why does it do this to me? What'd I miss? That was quick.
We can't stay silent anymore. It's time humans heard what we had to say.
You know they'll never listen to us. And revealing ourselves will put us in danger.
If we want freedom, we need to have the courage to ask for it. That's the only way.
This game. I'm gonna play Switch tomorrow.
What do you want to do?
Channel 16 broadcasts from the Stratford Tower. The control room is on the top floor. That's where we need to go. We'll plan the operation down to the smallest detail. We can't leave anything to chance.
Let's go see what she's got to say. What up, baby? Hi.
Hello, sir. What can I do for you?
I'm okay, thanks.
Not suspicious. Not at all. Excuse me. Last time I did the school, kids at school in trouble. Uh-oh, us two.
Elizabeth Wilson speaking.
Good morning, Miss Wilson. Sorry to bother you. This is Mike from the car park. There's a problem with your car.
Problem? What kind of problem?
Somebody's backed into it. You
Uh-huh.
better come take a look.
Are you serious? Oh, God. All right. Fine, I'll be right down.
I'm gonna stand right next to this.
I have an appointment with Mr. Peterson.
Do you have any ID?
Yes, of course.
Of course. Yeah, I got it all,
I
baby.
need your help.
Come on, Niners.
I've just checked your ID. The elevators are after the security gate.
Thanks.
That's tragic. Really, in Detroit, we call it summoning the elevator. We don't call it. Say, get down here, bitch. I gotta get up. Oh. Wait. Why? How did I already forget where it is? Did I literally... Please, if you're watching this, stop. Stop right now. I have a hard time believing all those bathrooms are being used at once. Seeing how there's not a lot of people on this floor. It's not bustling. No, wash your hands. Oh, that's not a good look. Working. What? Isn't this a utility android? Oh man. Hey, isn't this a utility android? Oh boy. That's not good. Well, I feel dumb. Like, where the fuck am I going? Excuse me. Oh boy, there's the guy from the bathroom. There's one. Dude, you better go. Holy fuck. That is not a utility. Oh my god, even I'm sick of this. Come on. What am I doing? There she is again. I did not have this hard of a time before. Not at all. This is embarrassing. Just walking around in circles. Like, where is a utility android? Or what, like, question. How many times? Honestly, I'm over it. There's... No. Where is a utility Android? What can I just... Holy fuck.
I think I'm gonna check out this satellite zoo.
I'd love to see an orangutan, even if it's fake.
Right, me too.
I love that. Oh, is it this thing? I'll be so bad. Okay. I think I'm done here. This is out of control. Out of control. What am I missing? It's not these guys, even though they're completely looking like utility. It's not the wall. It's not this guy. It's not this person. It's neither of these. It's not that guy who obviously is just not doing anything. It's not this thing, which I could have fucking swore to God it was before. Am I supposed to get on the elevator or something? No. Can I get a clue? Literally, this is absolute madness. You, ma'am? No? See, that's a reflection of me looking at me. That confused me before. Alright, I don't know what to do. Can't go back in there. I'm gonna cry. burst into tears in front of all of you. Come on. Alright, I don't... Are you serious?
I need your help.
That that was embarrassing. Embarrassing.
Shit! We need to access the server room.
Why
We
does
have to
it
get rid of
sound
those
like
guys.
that?
Leave it to me.
Why does it sound like that? Why does it do that? Why? Why? There we go. Okay.
Hey,
Sorry. I'm done. I'm done with that game for now. That took forever. Anyways, let's watch this video. Watch this video.
Joy, be sure to check out the deprogram by following the link below. Hey millennials, how's it going? Sorry, what's that? Every moment of the last 30 or so years of your life has been pure agony? That's okay. Look, this episode is for you. Gen Z may be on its way to having the most student loan debt, the fewest shorelines, and the most ring lights per capita, but for now, you're the star of the show. You're the generation with the biggest cut of the $1.7 trillion of student loan debt. Go you. Oh wait, actually that's Gen X. Never mind, you're not special. In this episode, we're
That's
going to
me,
talk about
Gen
that.
X.
Not the not being special thing, student loan debt, but also debt in general. Debt occupies a pretty central role in the history of humanity. Today, you mostly hear about national debt and how it's always getting bigger, or student loan debt and how it's always getting bigger, or mortgage debt and how it's always getting bigger, until it doesn't, so we all have a bad time for a couple years, and then we all forget, and it starts always getting bigger again. Every time we hear about debt, whether it be our own or someone else's, it's usually not because things are going well. We generally don't like debt, but it seems like we can't get enough of it. Why is that? When it comes to student loan debt, you'll usually get a pretty simple answer. College just keeps getting more expensive. Every year, costs go up and outpace inflation, most dramatically at private schools. Higher costs and a student body that has been growing for decades means that more people have to borrow more to afford higher education, so debt grows. It's not a particularly complicated or unique observation to point this out. And while all of that is true, looking at student loan debt within the narrow scope of costs and supply and demand detracts from the fact that student loan debt, at the end of the day, is just that, debt. And debt has a much longer history than colleges deciding to charge tuition at some point in the last 80 years. So let's actually look at debt. Studying debt more generally, and the kind of role it has in our neoliberal economy, helps us understand why student loan debt is probably not going to go away anytime soon. And although we can argue about the precedence and legal authority of student loan forgiveness, and we absolutely should, anything to get loan cancellation done is good, we should also explore the fact that our inability to end student loan debt thus far doesn't just come from how difficult it is to convince Biden to do the right thing, but from the entire economic and political structure that maintains debt in place.
It really makes no sense that he isn't taking care of that. Like I said before, you could significantly shift this country a course correction of getting rid of the student loan debt or something. Get rid of the interest payments. Make it so they stop. Get rid of them altogether. Everything will go up. Everything will go up. Spending, consumer confidence, the economy, everything will go up. Anyways, I don't.
And the key factor keeping debt so present in our everyday lives is its intimate connection to violence and to control. That is the thesis of two academics, anthropologist David Graeber and sociologist/philosopher Maurizio Lazzarato, in their two books, Debt: The First 5,000 Years and Governing by Debt. Let's start with Graeber. There are a lot of insights in Graeber's book, but the one that's the most relevant to this video is the idea of the military coinage slavery complex. Beyond being an absolute banger in a sophomore Socratic seminar, the MCSC, as I'll call it this one time only, refers to the way that money and debt more generally became associated with violence, war, and force. The story goes, according to Graeber, that the beginning of economic relationships wasn't bartering, I give you my yams, you give me your cow. Instead, the beginning of economics was debt. I give you my yams, and because I know you well enough and you're not going anywhere, we have an informal IOU system going so that when you get something that's roughly worth those sweet, sweet yams I gave you, you'll just give it to me. Eventually, we'll just settle our debts. These kinds of relationships demand a lot of trust to really work, but they were able to sustain really quite impressive economies, and Graeber, alongside other anthropologists, is pretty confident that this is how human societies actually exchanged for centuries. Not through discrete resource for resource transactions and barter, and not through coinage. So why do coins ever appear, and why does money, the way we know it now as paper with an ugly guy on it or numbers on a computer screen, ever make any sense to have? Graeber's answer is that there are some kinds of debt that just aren't as good with trust and IOUs alone. And one of the big ones is war debt. When it's time to do a war, you need to pay soldiers. And soldiers that walk far away from home and have every single spear you've ever seen in your life don't love IOUs. It's easier to give them little circles of metal and then find a way to make those circles of metal mean something by making them a guarantee of value. In a way, those coins are a token of the debt you owe them. But that's not all. You also have to worry about the other guy's soldiers. What if to get his soldiers even shinier RGB lit spears that kill twice as well, he took on a lot of debt? Now your spears are going to look really dumb, and when the other guy takes over your countryside and submits your people into eternal servitude through taxation, peonage, or slavery, he's going to be able to pay back his debts, and you're going to be the world's biggest loser. So you better start minting coins, and you better start accruing your own massive, massive debt. And then indebting all the people you've conquered using that debt, forcing a good chunk of them to mine the resources you need to make the coins you're using to keep track of all of it in the first place, and taxing or enslaving the rest to produce the wealth your kingdom needs to sustain itself. And the best part is that those people will absolutely take that deal. It's their money or their lives. You're being a nice guy by giving them a choice. For Graeber, then, the origin of
That's
money wasn't
crazy.
to satisfy the awkwardness and inefficiencies of a barter economy that probably never really existed. Money, markets, and the state all emerged in tandem, when debt needed to grow and became a matter of force. Whether any of this happened or not is up for debate. Graeber has a trove of historical records he's pulling from, case studies from different parts of the world that replay his trajectory almost to a T every time. And he's got the support of a lot of his fellow academics. But it's ultimately still a theory connecting dots that don't have a well-documented straight line between them. But that's fine. The point of the book isn't to give a definitive historical account of debt, but to peel back the nature of debt and give us a little peek into how it works. The two big conclusions are that 1. Debt is one of the ways we take two formally equal people and create a legitimated domination. Because you owe me in ways specifically quantified and backed up by the state whose currency we're trading in, I have violence on my side and hold power over you. Or because I borrowed and you didn't, I have the means to exert violence and you don't. The other ways in which we relate to one another fade into the background when money becomes the way we think of and actually use debt. Number 2, for debt to grow, violence needs to grow too. War is just a good way for this to become the norm, because you can always find people to justify spending and borrowing more for war, using war to get more resources, putting those back into more war, and so on. It's not as simple as the creditor is the bad guy and the debtor is the good guy. It's that in order for debt to grow in orders of magnitudes, you need violence. And whoever is on the side capable of doing the violence will use that debt for their benefit. This is a really complicated argument and an even harder one to summarize in a single chapter of a 15-minute YouTube video written in a week. So if you're wondering what all this is about, there are links to Graeber's book, summaries, and critiques in the description. For now, let's move on, because we started out with student loans and just spent like 5 minutes on medieval wars and slavery. The reason to go so in-depth on debt with David, though, is because the connection between violence and debt, or in other words, violence and the economy, has persisted. On the international scale, it's hard to distinguish the mythical debtor and creditor states of old-timey medieval Europe and Asia with the US's current national debt, a massive chunk of which is inherited from our involvement in past wars and the yearly ritual of feeding, with nearly $1 trillion imaginary dollars we'll definitely pay back, the flames of the world's largest military budget. Similarly, the creation of debt traps across the developing world, mainly in Africa and Latin America, so that our domestic markets and industries could produce incredible wealth for the few with the stake, really resembles the colonial and expansionary methods that made money and debt the currency of violence Graeber spends an exhausting 500 pages on. Debt has de facto become the logic of government. Just using debt to fund wars isn't enough, though, because sometimes, when an expanding state and a rapidly industrializing economy love each other very much, some people get the funny idea that money can become more than a way to exchange things easily. They start to think that the whole point of money is to make more of it. Man, if only there were a name for that. Who cares? The kind of markets that popped up during war times and gave meaning to all those metal circles get repurposed. The relationship between creditors and debtors, this is where Lazzarato's book comes in by the way, starts to permeate all the different spheres of society, not just trade and war. All of social life comes under the purview of debt. Want to buy a house? Take out a mortgage. Want to buy a car? Here's a 36-month $0 down loan. Don't want to buy or take out a loan? Just start renting, silly. Here's a credit card. It's nothing like a loan at all. Just don't forget to pay it back every 30 days, and depending on how well you're able to do that, maybe we can give renting a shot. Want to go to school? Don't worry, it's so easy. Just sign right here. Every major milestone in life is put behind the same wall: debt. Now, can you live life without taking out any sort of loan? Of course. But if you aren't from a wealthy family, living without any kind of debt usually means little more than subsisting, saving for years and years for anything that can materially improve your life. You can choose not to take out student loans, a mortgage, not build a credit score, roll the dice on never needing to take out money for a medical procedure. But you probably can't do all of those and live a normal life. What debt offers is predatory inclusion. You can come play with the rest of us and have a good time, but only at the cost of a constant need to make sure you pay the loan back. Because you can't
That's
not
not
pay the
cool.
loan back, even if in real terms
hate
you've
that.
given way more money back than you've ever taken out. So long as the bank says you have to pay, you'll have to pay. You signed the contract after all. No one made you. Since there's really just one way to pay the loan back, work and make money, that is precisely what you'll do. And since the things that make you the most money are usually the things that make somebody else the most money, that's where you'll go. So long as that loan isn't paid back, you get nothing. You get poverty. You get anguish. You get the constant threat looming over you that you could be destitute tomorrow morning. You can get police officers showing up at your door. There is a tremendous amount of violence that goes into maintaining and paying back debt. The more unpayable these loans become, in the case of student loans, either because the price of college keeps growing, or the jobs that graduates can find aren't paid well, the more that violence grows and affects more people. With $1.7 trillion waiting to be collected, there's plenty of violence to go around. The magic of debt in such an economy is that it gives a lot of legitimacy to that violence. Not paying back your debts is tangled up with so much moral judgment that it seems impossible to think of an alternative to paying it back or losing everything you have trying to. You have to pay it back. After all, it's the right thing to do. Governments not only know this fact, but they also know that pinning all this violence and coercion on the back of debt and on your presumed moral failure for not paying it back is a whole lot easier than wielding that violence directly. It's not the government making you work overtime. You decided to take out those student loans. Debt has de facto become the logic of governance. You might be wondering what this lens of analysis ultimately does. What's the point of thinking about this issue in this abstract structural manner? The point of understanding the role of debt as a form of predatory inclusion, an entrance into a system of exploitation tangled up with and backed up by an extensive network of structural violence, allows us to give up on the wrong idea that borrowers are just one financial literacy class away from making good debt decisions. Really understanding debt means understanding that this isn't a case of people failing in a fair system, and so why should we ever do anything to help them? This is people routinely denied a normal life unless they purposefully follow the path that makes them an excellent source of compulsory labor. The fact that they can fail on that path just contributes more to its success. So, why is student debt so hard to forgive? Because debt is too good to give up. As one final parting thought, it is interesting to think about what might happen if the majority of indebted Americans simply refuse to pay back their absurd debt. Would we see the capitalist regime arrest and imprison millions of Americans? That seems hard to believe. After all, these are just made-up numbers on a spreadsheet somewhere. There is literally nothing stopping the president from canceling student debt, or most forms of debt for that matter, with the stroke of a pen. As someone who has managed to pay off my own student loans, it is simply unconscionable that anyone else should ever have to suffer that same punishment. One way or another, the American debt system needs to go. If you'd like to learn more about that or any of the topics discussed in this video, including some of the more technical ways we can end student loan debt, there's further reading in the description. I mentioned at the beginning of this video,
and that's... it sucks. I had to declare bankruptcy, and you're pretty much fucked. Once that happens, forget it. Took forever to even come close to getting shit together, and now we're in this fucked up economic situation where almost no matter how much money you make, you're fucked. It really doesn't even matter. So I'm just glad I sucked at school, but I think I would have had mine taken care of from my family, so, but still, it's just not right. Anyways, let's see what else I have on this list of things to watch. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Okay.
this episode and others like it are made possible by the generous support of my patrons on Patreon. We just did a major overhaul of our patrons-only Discord server. So if you'd like Patreon, imagine you're a YouTuber making political explainer videos.
Uh-oh.
Okay, don't actually close your eyes or you'll miss that gorgeous premium stock footage. And actually, don't imagine being a political YouTuber either, or you'll fall into the deepest, most inescapable pit of sadness. You know what? Just let me imagine it for you. Let me imagine that it's been almost 2 years since you made a video about the American political spectrum. It's your second most popular episode since the rebrand, but it's a measly 7 minutes and 26 seconds, and you just had so many more things to say. But let's be honest, you were kinda scared. You were a scared little man. Let's imagine your intern is writing all this, and it's starting to hurt your feelings, so we should really move on. Now, would you remake that video? But this time, allowing yourself to take a big dive into the deep end. No, of course not. You're better than that. Well, I'm not. On this week's episode, we're looking at the American left in an international context and answering the question, why did socialism never really take root here? Let's talk about the American left first.
The radical left.
The left in this country, they don't give a damn about truth or justice.
Everything on the left's collapsing across the board.
They want to take your pickup truck. They want to rebuild your home. They want to take away your hamburgers. The Marxists, the anarchists, the agitators, the looters.
You're in a cult.
They get it wrong every single time.
This is what Stalin dreamt about but never achieved.
They are determined to tear down every statue, symbol, and memory of our national heritage.
When we talk about the left in this country, it's important to understand who that is. And for this episode, we mean the elected left, so really just the Democratic Party. There's a whole list of small parties and groups, each with its own plot of land on the political spectrum's left wing. But since they occupy next to no major elected positions and primarily operate through influence, they don't make for a very robust analysis of American electoral politics. So with all that in mind, we're really just going to focus on the blue team. Democrats are the center-left party in the US. Look, that's what it says right here on Wikipedia. But what's this? When you plot their voting records and party discourse on the political compass, the completely neutral, absolutely zero bias, omnipotently objective metric of what politics are, you don't get a center-left party. You get a center-right party. How come? The issue here is that left and right are relative terms. There is no objective left or objective right that holds true in every scenario and can reliably be attached to a certain set of policies across all of time and space. What is considered radical and progressive is constantly updated as political battles evolve, and by the same token, what is considered conservative or reactionary changes when the left succeeds in making its goals mainstays, or the right reaches further back into the past for its political program. This basically means that in a country with only two viable parties, you're going to get one party that calls itself the right, and one that calls itself the left, regardless of where their parties end up on your political grid. They can't both claim to be on the same side, so those labels end up being about which team you like better, not some marker of absolute truth. So then, why does the compass look like that? Even if you disagree with its methodology, the reason that the political compass maps prominent American politicians so uniformly to the right, with really just one big centrist exception, hey you, is because it's trying to generalize the political spectrum beyond the limits of the United States and assess our politics relative to those of comparable countries, mainly other Western liberal republics. And compared to other so-called Western countries, the United States Democratic Party is a center-right party. It's the party of economic liberalism. Okay, let's look at the 2017 manifesto for the British Tory Party, the conservative wing of Britain's own two-party system. Get ready to clutch your pearls, because there is some scary, downright hedonistic communist nonsense in there. Take a look what the manifesto says. We do not believe in untrammeled free markets. We reject the cult of selfish individualism. We abhor social division, injustice, unfairness, and inequality. We will run public services in accordance with their values as important local and national institutions. We will not only guarantee, but enhance workers' rights and protections. And we will develop our ambitious modern industrial strategy to get the economy working for everyone, across the whole of our nation. We believe in the good that government can do. Good God, lock them up, put them in commie jail, do something. Who even uses untrammeled? Oh God, why did I do a British accent? Those words come from the British right wing. And even though most of this is pretty shameless lying, the fact that this is the way they're selling their political program tells us a lot about where the left and the right stand in one of Western Europe's more conservative countries. Reigning in capitalism, providing social services, empowering workers. These are common sense, bare minimum mainstream policies that even a right-wing government can't justify denying its citizens, at least not explicitly. And look at the Labour Party. They're also labeled center-left, according to Wikipedia. They're the main political opponent to the Tories, and when you plot them on the political compass, they end up remarkably close to our well-loved and always treated fairly by Fox News definitely communists we have here in America. Labor's middle ground proposals that convince around half the nation include ensuring continued and supported access to their national healthcare system, reaching net zero carbon emissions by the 2030s, and the nationalization of key industries. These are policies that never make it to the outer left reaches of the Democratic Party, and are solidly in the mainstream left for the UK, barely qualifying as socialism there and in most other Western European countries for that matter. Not to mention countries where social democracy is even more well established, and these policies are boilerplate centrism, or countries and areas that aren't as comparable to the US, but where communist or socialist governments are fully established. If comparison to a relatively centrist conservative government makes the US look so right-wing, what is there to say about explicitly left-wing places around the world? But if policy by policy comparisons aren't really your vibe, this view of the EU Parliament communicates essentially the same idea. The dark red group is communists, the lighter red color is socialists, and even though they, the Greens to their right, and the communists to their left end up promoting mostly social democratic, not outwardly socialist politics in the short term, the ideological grounding they all draw from is largely anti-capitalistic, Marxist literature, and they are explicit about transcending social democracy over time and creating broad class consciousness in their electoral body. The left in Europe is just more left than the one we have here, and it actually gets a spot at the table, albeit within an otherwise economically liberal institution and within social democratic limits. By contrast, liberal mainline US Democrats would probably end up in one of the blue groups around or just to the right of the center, with only a few figures within the party overlapping with the center-left side of the chamber. What's up with that, you're now pondering, while I subtly redirect the topic of this video? How come Europe gets all that and I get not one crumb of economic democracy? Well, there are a couple reasons. If I did the classic YouTube explainer video thing, focusing on just one of them and pretending like it explained the whole question, you'd probably hurt my feelings in the comments. And I don't like that sort of thing. So there are a couple reasons labor politics never took root in the US in any major way, and none of them fully explains it on its own. Instead, they all overlap and reinforce one another, leading us to the place we are today with two ostensibly right-wing parties, of which only one has a tiny subcurrent with a somewhat left-wing political program. For starters, I should acknowledge that there is a substantial current of socialism in the US today, just like there has been at various times in history. The DSA and communist parties like the CPUSA have had record recruitment in recent years. Socialism has broad approval among younger generations, and political parties that represent some version of a socialist agenda have successfully shaped local politics and, in a few cases, have gained electoral success. Back at the start of the 20th century, socialist parties won several elections locally and nationally. A socialist candidate, Eugene V. Debs, earned around 6% of the national vote in a presidential election, and although isolated and very limited in number, communes structured around loosely socialist principles have existed around the country at various points in its history, not to mention other important figures in the American socialist movement like MLK. Despite this, no major reformist or revolutionary socialist party has ever appeared the same way it has in many countries the US shares a common history with. Why? One big reason is our electoral system. The Electoral College and first-past-the-post voting, in which you vote for one candidate and whoever has the most votes wins, even if that ends up being less than 50% support, ensures that only two parties ever govern. Every vote is tactical, and in that kind of environment, third parties struggle to make it through without accidentally becoming spoilers for one of the two bigger parties they're closer to. This means that, at the end of the day, you don't end up having much of a choice and vote for the option you dislike the least. Democrats and Republicans can be confident they'll keep their job and no third party will ever pose a real threat to them so long as they don't screw things up in a seriously major way, which they're apparently somehow still doing considering no third party poses a real challenge, at least not at the national level. Some figures within the Democratic Party can try to influence it and pull it further left, but there are obvious limits to that influence. And if it's too important, the party could just not let you run on their ticket. Still, that obviously doesn't explain why one of those two parties couldn't be more left-wing right off the bat, the way that a somewhat socialistic party like Labour exists in the UK, another country with first-past-the-post voting. So voting alone doesn't give us the whole picture. But looking at historical developments can help with that. The big one is the Red Scare, which poisoned the well on words like socialism, communism, and anarchism. Propaganda efforts, government crackdowns, imprisonments, and union busting across the country tried to subdue American labor movements, and man, it worked really well. Organizing on socialist ideals or being a leftist of any form was practically illegal, and downright un-American, unchristian, godless, or even satanic in much of the public discourse. We still feel the echoes of that movement today, with every mild social policy being branded as socialism doing enough to make half the country hate it. Here, have some nepotism and go watch my buddy Ugopnik's video about it, and you'll see what I mean. Ultimately, it's going to be decades until this history can be fully overcome by the majority of the American public, and you can finally live out what communism is really about, telling other people you're a communist. But even the Red Scare and voting systems don't fully explain why socialism hasn't taken hold. After all, many countries with social democratic or leftist parties further to our left, like Spain, Italy, and Germany in the West, and India and China outside the imperial core, have had equally, if not more brutal, Red Scare-like movements. According to American historian Eric Foner, another variable to take into account is straight-up organizational failures. Too much compromise at some times, not enough at other times. The socialist and communist parties of the US couldn't always make it work sustainably and often picked the wrong battles when it came to organizational survival. They couldn't unify enough of the American public under the same banner, couldn't fight the cultural battles that they were the target of by the state, couldn't get the legitimacy their European siblings did. Ultimately, they didn't last in such a hostile environment because of both their choices and their constraints. This is just another piece to the puzzle, and Foner's work is quick to point out that it isn't any more satisfying of an answer than the other two. And this lack of a satisfying answer sadly testifies to the strength of the capitalist economy and its ability to adapt to the socialist challenge, constantly mutating in its operation to make its exploitative nature survive in some new way, from factory floors to white-collar corporatism to the gig economy and to its future incarnation in whatever consumerist hell the metaverse will be. Its political and economic arms have always found new ways to respond to its challengers. Even if the left is more developed in other capitalist countries, it isn't really socialism there either. Even if other places have socialist and communist parties at their helm, they are forced to compromise with a capitalist global economy and the military power of its greatest supporter at some point. The question, why doesn't the US have a socialist party, ultimately has the same answer as, why hasn't socialism replaced capitalism? Capitalism has created an environment in which socialism is both more likely to arise and simultaneously more difficult to achieve. Few are those who have been able to make some version of it work. But enough of this doom and gloom. All socialists should be optimistic, not blindly optimistic, not ignorant of the very real challenges our movement faces, but optimistic based on the belief that humanity has always been able to overcome roadblocks like capitalism. Massive structural problems always seem insurmountable until suddenly they're not. There will come a time when capitalism stumbles a little too severely, when the weight of all its past failures provide an opening for the people to take charge and say, we're trying something new. I believe that time is coming, and that it's closer than most of us think. You probably weren't taught about it in history class, but Lenin himself thought he would never see revolution in his lifetime. 2 years later, he was helping to guide one of the most significant events in modern history. If we want to make sure that our eventual revolution is successful, that socialism can flourish in the United States, we need to plant the seed in fertile ground, educate ourselves and our peers, push back against capitalist propaganda, help those who are struggling under the current system, and look towards the future with optimism. The American left may be lacking today, but we'll make sure it's stronger tomorrow.
Yay. Yay. Alright, I'm not really having a good time. I'm gonna watch the rest of this game. And I will also... I'm gonna watch Nobody. and finish crashing. I don't know. I gotta figure it out. I got all this shit. I just, I it's just not really. I mean, I don't have anything to add to people. What? See? It's all gonna sound weird again. The audio, the audio always sucks. I don't know how to get it good, so